Live pictures from North Africa show the Pope stepping onto Algerian soil at the start of a sweeping tour that is meant to put Africa, where roughly a fifth of the world's Christians now live, at the center of the Catholic Church's global attention. The visit begins in Algeria and is followed by stops in Cameroon, Angola, and Equatorial Guinea in a journey expected to last around a week and a half. It is a schedule that mixes major religious landmarks with national symbols, an itinerary designed to speak to faith, identity, and the delicate politics of coexistence in a region where history and religion overlap in complicated ways. In Algiers, the Pope's first public appearances are framed by places heavy with memory, monuments, and vantage points overlooking the Mediterranean, the city's great houses of worship, and sites that reflect both the wounds of the past and the possibilities of reconciliation. Among them, a martyr's monument capturing the country's struggles and sacrifices, and two iconic religious destinations, the Great Mosque of Algiers, known for its towering minaret, and the Basilica of Our Lady of Africa, standing above the bay. But this trip is also unfolding under the shadow of war, specifically the conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. And before the Pope even completed the first leg of the journey, the tour was pulled into a rapidly escalating political argument after the Pope responded to an attack from the President of the United States, Donald Trump. On board the plane taking him to Algeria, the Pope was asked about the president's comments and the broader dispute between the White House and the Vatican over the war and over Iran. The Pope's reply was firm, but he tried to draw a line between moral advocacy and political confrontation, insisting he would not be pulled into a personal feud, even while repeating his opposition to war. Asterisk, he said, I do not intend to debate with the American president over his message for peace. Asterisk, he then rooted his position in Christian teaching rather than diplomacy or party politics. Asterisk, he said, the message of the church, my message, the message of the gospel, blessed are the peacemakers. Asterisk, and then directly rejecting the idea that his public words were meant to score political points, he continued, asterisk, he said, I do not look at my role as being political or politician. I don't want to get into a debate with him. At the same time, he warned that faith was being weaponized, insisting the gospel was being dragged into battles it was never meant to serve. He said, I don't think that the message of the gospel is meant to be abused in the way that some people are doing. Then came the clearest statement of intention. The Pope said he will keep speaking out regardless of who takes offense, because he believes silence is no longer an option. Asterisk, he said, I will continue to speak out loudly against war, looking to promote peace, promoting dialogue and multilateral relationships among the states to look for just solutions to problems. The argument, in other words, is not about tone. It is about the Pope's conviction that moral authority should be used publicly, even when it collides with state power. Addis, too many people are suffering in the world today. Too many innocent people are being killed, and I think someone has to stand up and say there's a better way to do this. Asterisk, those remarks were delivered as the war with Iran remains a dominant force in global politics, reshaping alliances, disrupting trade routes, and intensifying security fears across the Middle East and beyond. Ceasefire efforts have been fragile and heavily contested, and while some talks have been held, the situation is volatile, with both military plans and diplomatic pressure advancing at the same time. The Pope's comments came in response to direct criticism from President Trump, who, the day before, publicly attacked the pontiff and questioned his stance on Iran, accusing him of being soft on the country's nuclear ambitions and on crime. The president's remarks were stark, personal, and unusually direct for a sitting U.S. president speaking about the leader of the Catholic Church. In a barrage of statements, he framed the Pope as politically biased and dangerously naive. He said, we don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. He expanded that accusation beyond foreign policy, tying it to domestic politics and law and order. He said, we don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. The president then made clear this was not a minor disagreement. Asterisk, he said, I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. Astes, and the central claim, repeated in different forms, was that the Pope represents the wrong instincts at the wrong moment, especially with Iran. He said he's a very liberal person and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. And still pressing his case, though, president argued the Pope was underestimating the danger he sees in Tehran's intentions. He said he's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. Finally, returning to his personal verdict, the president concluded, he said, I'm not a fan of Pope Leo. That exchange, president versus Pope, has instantly become one of the most striking public disputes between a modern pontiff and a U.S. president in recent memory, and it is made even more unusual by the Pope's background. He is the first U.S. Dash-born Pope, now leading a global church while being pulled into a storm generated in part by politics back home. From Rome, the reaction among Vatican watchers is that this is not simply a clash of personalities. The view from the Vatican is that the Pope is trying to build a counterweight to the logic of war itself, criticizing what is being justified, not merely who is justifying it, the VAT. ICON's position, as interpreted by those close to its thinking, is that the Pope does not want to be cast as a political opponent of the American president, an anti-Trump figure on the world stage. Instead, he wants his message to land as something broader, a moral argument aimed at believers and non-believers alike, grounded in the idea that human dignity must matter more than military momentum. That framing matters because the war has become politically charged in nearly every major capital split, between those who argue the conflict is necessary to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran and those who warn it has already crossed a threshold into catastrophe, killing civilians and deepening regional instability. Against that background, Algeria is where the Pope chose to speak publicly, not just about geopolitics, but about the foundations of coexistence, what he called the path of mutual respect, in a place shaped by cultural and religious intersections. As he addressed the crowd in Algiers, a spoken language designed to reach beyond the Catholic minority there and beyond the borders of the country, praising the spiritual heritage of the nation and urging a shared commitment to peace. He said, in this land where cultures and religions intersect, mutual respect is the path that enables everyone to walk together. He then offered a message directly aimed at the country's future role in the region. He said, may Algeria, firm in its roots and steadfast in the hope of its young men and women, continue to contribute to stability and dialogue within the international community and along the shores of the Mediterranean. After his tone was not that of a visitor passing through, but of a religious leader attempting to affirm national identity while urging openness. He acknowledged the distinctiveness of every people and the strength nations draw from their own history. Asterisk, he said, every people possesses a unique patrimony of history, culture, and faith. And the N, naming Algeria explicitly, he added, he said Algeria too is blessed with this richness which has sustained it through difficult times and continues to guide it into the future. He placed faith at the center of that story, not as a marker of division, but as a source of social resilience and moral purpose. He said faith in God has a central place in your heritage, and he described what that faith, in his view, does for ordinary life. He said, indeed, faith illuminates the life of each person, sustains families, and inspires a sense of fraternity. Then came one of the most emphatic lines of the address, describing love of God as a form of national wealth, an unusual phrase, but one that reflects his wider theme, that spiritual conviction can be a stabilizing force, especially in a world that feels increasingly fractured. He said, a nation that loves God possesses true wealth. He praised Algerians for holding on to that jewel, and he broadened his A. P to a world he described as hungry for reconciliation. He said, our world needs believers like this, men and women of faith who thirst for justice and unity. And then, in a line that fits squarely with his response to war questions earlier in the day, he framed unity not as a sentimental aspiration, but as a duty, something to be declared and practiced. He said, it is a great gift and a sacred duty for us to declare with conviction that we are always united as brothers and sisters, children of the one God. The Pope's message in Algeria, then, operates on two levels at once. On the surface, it is a pastoral address to a country with deep religious identity and a complex relationship between memory, nationalism, and faith. He highlights young people, stability and dialogue. He speaks of fraternity in a region often described through security fears. But underneath, and increasingly impossible to separate from the day's headlines, his remarks are also part of the Vati. Cannes' broader attempt to project a moral critique of contemporary conflict, especially the war involving Iran. He is not detailing military strategies or negotiations. He is making an argument about the moral architecture of war, the justifications, the language, the ways in which violence becomes normalized. And while the Vatican insists it is not engaging in partisan politics, the collision with Washington is real. When a sitting U.S. president accuses the Pope of enabling nuclear weapons and tolerating crime, and when the Pope responds by saying he will not debate but will continue to denounce war, the dispute becomes global by default. In the coming days, the tour will move on from Algeria, with the Pope expected to continue addressing themes that are central to the continent's growing importance in the Church: migration and economic justice, peace and governance, interfaith relationships, the future of young populations, and the role of religious communities amid political strategy. Ain, the symbolism of the destinations matters. In Algeria, the schedule places him both at Muslim and Catholic sites, highlighting coexistence. In the other countries, he is likely to encounter different realities, regions shaped by past conflict, struggles over resources, and a vibrant Christianity that is growing faster than in many parts of Europe. The Vatican's calculation appears to be that Africa is not only the demographic future of Catholicism, but also a place where the Church's message on peace and social justice can be heard with urgency, because the costs of instability are not theoretical there. And yet, every stop on this tour now carries an added dimension. The war and the argument with the U.S. president will follow him. Even if the Pope insists he is not a politician, the world is treating his words as political. And even if he refuses the idea of a personal duel, the president has framed it as one attacking his character, his ideology, and his judgment. What happened? Ends next depends partly on what the White House does, partly on whether the war moves toward escalation or negotiation, and partly on whether Catholic leaders, especially in the United States, choose to amplify the Pope's moral call for peace or attempt to soften it to avoid confrontation. But as the Pope stands at monuments tied to national memory and speaks about fraternity, his position is already clear. He is asking the world to measure strength differently, not by the ability to punish or dominate, but by the courage to pursue dialogue when vengeance feels easier. And on a day when war rhetoric and moral rhetoric collided at the highest level, the Pope chose to stake his authority on one message, repeated in different forms across different settings. Peace is not weakness, and calling for it is not optional.